Abrego Garcia. Say his name, Abrego Garcia. Because it could easily be John Doe, Mary Adams, or Carolyn Rose. What is happening in this country right now is exactly what we all knew was going to happen. He was sent, we didn't expect the foreign country. That's a total new twist on things. And that is what got me wondering, why El Salvador? Why is he shipping off supposed alleged criminals to El Salvador? And why did an innocent man get sent to El Salvador and now we're not able to get him back? I had a lot of questions about this whole process and how this is happening. And so I dug down, did some research, and I wanted to share with you what I learned because I think it's important for us all to know what is going on. My name is Carolyn, and this is my channel called As I See It, where I talk politics and current events. And it's getting hard. It used to be talking about things that might happen, or theorizing about things, or trying to predict what might happen, and it's a lot harder to make videos now that we're actually living it. I'm going to be honest with you. But today I did a lot of research. I want to share with you what I learned, because I figured if I had questions about this stuff that you guys probably do too, and I know you all like to learn as much as I do, and so I want to share this with you. My question this morning, as I was sitting out enjoying my coffee, trying to enjoy the moment, my first question was, why El Salvador? Why of all places are we shipping people to El Salvador? I didn't understand that. And I found some surprising things that I didn't know about. As early as January 27th, 7 days after the inauguration, CBS reported that the president, I hate calling him that, 47, was already working on an asylum agreement with El Salvador. 7 days after inauguration, he was already in talks with the president of El Salvador about an asylum agreement. So these asylum agreements are not new. This isn't something that he invented. It's not something that has never done before. It's called the Safe Third Country Agreement, and countries do it all the time. We have a Safe Third Country Agreement with Canada. And what this usually means is that when someone comes to your border seeking asylum, let's say the southern border. If someone comes to the southern border seeking asylum, what it means is that we might have an agreement with like Mexico saying, okay, this immigrant, this migrant from El Salvador came through your country first to get away from, and usually when you're seeking asylum, it's because you're in danger in your home country, right? And so that's why migrants give up everything and risk everything to travel thousands of miles, often on foot, pay their whole life savings to coyotes to escape. They want to escape because they're in danger often, right? I think that's what asylum is. I think you have to be in danger. These Safe Third Country Agreements say that, okay, you came to the United States border seeking asylum, but you could have sought asylum in Mexico. And so Mexico agrees to take that migrant and to put them through their asylum process. That's what it means. We have one with Canada. Canada's like, okay, people come through the United States trying to get asylum, but they could have tried to get asylum in the United States, or vice versa, from Canada into the United States. And therefore, we already have this agreement. So rather than United States or Canada taking the asylum seeker, we're going to take them back. We're going to send them back, turn them away and say, okay, go to this other country. We have an agreement with them. They will take you. And you can get asylum. If you've already traveled through a country, and I think we've heard this before in this whole immigration debate, if you traveled through another country where you could have sought asylum, you should have sought asylum in the first country you crossed, not travel thousands of more miles to go to the United States. So we have agreements with these countries all over the place. Now, He started in his first term to create these kind of agreements with other countries. And I think there was Venezuela, maybe. There was one that he put in place. There were a couple that never got put in place, including El Salvador. And then when Biden came into office, he completely, these agreements and proposed agreements completely went away. Biden is like, no, we have enough of these agreements around the world. We don't need any more, especially with dictator countries, which El Salvador is. The president of El Salvador calls himself the cool dictator. I'm the cool dictator. So I'm going to give you the definition, the formal definition. A safe third-party agreement allows countries to return asylum seekers to a previous country they passed through if that country is deemed safe and offers protection, as long as the asylum seeker has not been returned to that country before. So, the key words here that I want to focus on, essentially these agreements establish a safe harbor where individuals can seek preventing them from claiming asylum in subsequent countries. Safe, 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 safe. That's the word I want to focus on here. A country is deemed safe for the migrant, for the asylum seeker, if it has a robust asylum system in place that protects the rights of the refugees, and not a place where the person would be at risk of persecution or harm. There's a lot of layers to this. Canada, for example, has a system in place for asylum seekers, refugees, migrants. They provide safe housing and even resources for the people while they're awaiting their hearing. So the process of asylum is you get to the border, you say, I'm applying for asylum. You fill out a whole bunch of forms. There's a whole bunch of paperwork. This is why I'm seeking asylum. My life is in danger. My family's life is in danger. I'm being extorted or whatever it is. They fill up the paperwork. Canada and I believe the United States then provides housing and resources for the migrants until their hearing. And then they get a hearing. And this is where the immigration system has failed in America. There are people living in this country for decades who never got their hearing. And we want to treat them like criminals. When they filled out the paperwork, they did everything they're told, they check in with immigration, they check in with ICE, they jump through the hoops, they do everything they're told. It's not their fault they're waiting 10 years for a hearing. And now we want to treat them like criminals. So we provide these resources, housing, safe. I want you to hold on to that word, safe, housing. Because what is happening in El Salvador is not safe in any way, shape, or form. Now that we're talking about the country is considered safe if it has a robust system for asylum seekers, or the person would not be at risk of persecution or harm. That's what a safe third country agreement is about. Ensuring the safety above all else of this human being. So I was curious about Abrego Garcia. And what I learned is that he was born in El Salvador. His parents are from El Salvador. And his father was actually a police officer, and his mother had a thriving business making pupusas. And if you've never had a pupusa, they're delicious. They're like these doughy things with cheese inside, cheese and meat. Yeah, I dated a Salvadorian guy for a while when I was in college. But yeah, pupusas are so good. So the family had to move. She had a really good business out of her home making pupusas and selling them. But the family got on the radar of a local gang called Barrio 18, which is a rival group of MS-13. And because her business was successful, they got on the radar of this gang, and they started extorting them for money starting in 2006. They were harassing them. They were beating them up. They were stalking them, demanding money for them to stop, extorting them. If you want us to stop harassing you and beating up your kids and threatening to rape your daughter, you will pay us money. The family ended up having to move several times to escape this. And even though the father was a police officer, they didn't want to go to the police because El Salvador was a very corrupt country. is still, in some ways, a very corrupt country, although the current cool dictator has gotten rid of a lot of the crime because he's stuffing everybody in prison. I'll get to that in a minute. Abrego Garcia entered the United States as a teenager. He was 16 in 2011. The gang was actually threatening to kill him, to kidnap him, or to force him to be in the gang. And his family got the resources together. They were afraid for his life. They didn't want him to become a gang member. They were afraid about his future. He's only 16 years old. He's already been subject to gang violence, and so they sent him to the United States to live with his brother, who is a United States citizen. So Abrego Garcia got here in 2011 illegally. He came and stayed with his brother, and he came here illegally. So fast forward to 2019 under the first I can't say his name, under the first administration of the guy who's holding the office now. And an immigration record at that time showed that a confidential informant claimed that he was an MS-13 gang member operating out of Long Island. Now, Garcia never lived in Long Island, ever. He lived in Maryland with his wife and his son and her two other kids. They're all special needs. He was a hardworking father. He went to college. He was part of a union, sheet metal union and all this. Well, some confidential informant said that he was a member of the M13 gang, which I find suspicious on a lot of levels because they're saying that he's a member of a rival gang, not the Barrio 18 who was extorting them. I don't know. It just seems very fishy to me. So he's got no criminal record in the United States or anywhere else. He's a hard-working father. Came here to escape violence, right? Sure, he came here illegally. And that's a misdemeanor crime, by the way. People want to treat it like murder. It's a misdemeanor. So he was first arrested under this guy who's in office in 2019 when he was trying to get a job at Home Depot. He was taken into custody for being here illegally, and he was charged with that crime. They were like, okay, you're here illegally. So at the time when all of this started happening, he went ahead and filed for asylum, got an attorney, and an immigration judge granted him a withholding of removal to El Salvador due to his well-founded fear of further persecution there from a violent gang known as Barrio 18. His attorneys allege that CSOT, which is the Salvadorian prison, houses members of that gang. This is in 2019. 2019. His attorney argued that he cannot be sent back to El Salvador because members of that gang who were going after him, who caused him to flee his country in the first place, would be in the prison that he would be sent to if he was deported back to El Salvador. So the judge was like, no, this guy is clearly in danger. I'm going to grant him asylum. I'm going to let him stay here. And I'm going to issue a withholding of removal, which means you cannot send him back to El Salvador because he will die or he will be in danger. And ICE never appealed. In 2019, ICE never appealed. They accepted that immigration judge's ruling, and Garcia was allowed to stay. He was, however, as a condition of his asylum, was required to check in with ICE every year, which he did. And then, so he was following the rule, right? He was here illegally. He I'm assuming, paid his debt or whatever happened there. Ended up getting his asylum. I don't know why he was 16. Maybe he didn't know. I don't know why he didn't try to get asylum the first time. Last month, he was arrested by ICE. March 12th, after finishing a job in Baltimore. He was held for a couple of days in Louisiana before being deported without a hearing to the Terrorism Confinement Center in El Salvador, a notorious prison known as CCOT. Trump's ICE rounded up this guy who had an order preventing his removal to El Salvador's CCOT prison because it would put him in harm's way from the very people he was escaping back in 2011. They sent him. They just sent him. Because we know this administration doesn't give a crap about what judges say because he thinks he's a king. He thinks he's a cool dictator. So does it sound like under a traditional safe third country agreement, they sent Garcia someplace safe? Exactly the opposite, right? Exactly the opposite. I hope someone who voted for him is watching. I know everyone else who's here, I'm preaching to the choir. The complete disregard for the safety of this man. Complete disregard. Utter complete disregard. If he had any conscience, if he had any morals, if he had any humanity in him at all, once he found out it was a mistake, he should have immediately got him back. And instead he's been there, hopefully still alive for more than 30 days. And rather than bring him back, he fought through every court possible to not have to bring him back. Knowing every minute he's there, his life is threatened. Cruel, evil, inhumane are the words that come to mind. So in January, 7 days after the inauguration, he started talks with El Salvador for this safe third safe country, I can never get it right, deal, right? To become a partner for asylum seekers, right? Well, by February, the president of El Salvador was saying, yeah, bring them to our mega prison, send them to us for a fee, of course, and you can also, by the way, send American citizens. This terrorism confinement center is a mega prison, and he's now accepting whoever Trump wants to send for a fee. He actually said on the record that this business, this housing criminals from America, would make his entire prison system sustainable. This one CCOT center, this one mega prison houses 40,000 people. 40,000 people. Now, this dictator, who calls himself the cool dictator, is known around the world for human rights violations. These are not safe places for migrants and refugees and asylum seekers. They are basically I tried to dig deeper to see what else I can find. I'm envisioning work camps, right? Forced work camps. Or worse, maybe he's just going to take the money. I can't imagine. I mean, it would benefit him financially to turn them into slave labor, right? Not just to feed and house them, no matter how horrible the conditions are. I imagine he's going to take a fee and also make money on the other end through forced labor. These are labor camps. These are Holocaust-era concentration camps. And for reference, for anyone who is watching who voted for him and still believes that this is okay, 60 Minutes, who is like the most, I suppose you think they're left now because they don't agree with you. Some really good investigative reporting over the years, very fair, very center, very balanced. Their own investigations found that 75% of the 238 migrants flown from Texas to CCOT had no criminal record. They had 75% of the people in that mega prison have no criminal record. None. And again, coming to the United States illegally is a misdemeanor. It's a speeding ticket. It's a parking ticket. And you think it's okay to put them in these inhumane conditions? I want to talk about one more huge issue. So any of us, again, who have studied history understands this is how it works, right? First you other, right? You other a different group of people. So they're no longer, you take away their humanity. They're animals, they're criminals, they're violent, awful. I mean, look at the language. I can't remember the adjective that Trump used this morning. He is dehumanizing them. And you, if you voted for him, allowed him to let you think of them as less than human, so whatever punishment they get is okay. That is exactly what Hitler did. That is exactly what Lenin did in Soviet Russia, the Soviet Union back in the day. Millions of people died under the Soviet Union, under Lenin and Stalin. Millions of people died under Hitler, and not just Jewish people under Hitler. And even under Stalin and Lenin, it was mothers and fathers, it was the young, the old, it was babies, it was journalists, it was academia, it was anybody who spoke out, it was landowners, it was anybody who did not agree with the government. But it always starts with a boogeyman. It always starts because are you going to let him send Garcia to El Salvador without any due process, or the other 238 immigrants? You don't care because they're not human to you. So they don't need due process. It's okay because we need to clean up the streets. He manufactured a problem. The crime in this country is perpetuated by men who live here, who are citizens. But he's convinced you that it's the illegal aliens. Illegal immigrants, he calls them aliens. Illegal immigrants, alien, another way to dehumanize them. He's convinced you they are the problem, and so you are willing to let him treat them as less than human and ship them off to another country. That's how it starts. You let due process slide with another group of people, and soon you let due process slide with citizens. The president of El Salvador is already saying he will take American citizens, and Trump is already saying violent criminals who are citizens might be sent there. I want you to put two and two together yourself, but I'll spell it out. They accidentally or not, there was an administrative error that caused them to ship away Garcia, who should not have been shipped there because his life is in danger. And now, El Salvadorian president is saying you can't have him back. Too bad. Actually, he posted something like, something really flippant, like, oopsie, too late. The president of El Salvador actually tweeted that, oopsie, too late, after our Supreme Court decided that he needed to come back. Oopsie, too late. When you start, it's bad enough. We all expected this, right? We all expected work camps, concentration camps. We all expected people to start disappearing. It's one thing when they disappear on your own soil. There is still hope that they can be freed. How the hell do you get people back from a foreign country? Another dictator. How the hell are you going to get an American reporter back on foreign soil without war? He can't force the Salvadorian president, he who is not bound by our Constitution, our courts, our Supreme Court. He's not bound by any of our laws. How are we going to get Garcia back? How are we going to get an American citizen who is wrongly kidnapped off the street for some made-up crime and then immediately within 72 hours shipped off to El Salvador? How are we going to get them back? Your brother, your sister, your teacher, your priest, who is pro-DEI, pro-gay, how are we going to get them back? We're not. They're going to disappear forever. This is freaking terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And if you are not outraged by Abrego Garcia accidentally being shipped to another country, unable to get him back, you have lost your humanity. You have completely lost your goddamn mind. Because Garcia today, John Smith tomorrow. Your neighbor tomorrow. Your sister tomorrow. Your daughter, your son, or you. So, this is where we're at. There's no ifs, ands, buts, or about it. We are no longer sliding into fascism. We're there. And only we can stop it. Get out, call your representatives, express your outrage every hour of every day. And I think the next protest is on the 19th. We cannot be afraid of this. It's freaking scary. I'm already thinking if I were imprisoned like this, would I fight it out or end it? What do we do? What do we do? Scary times, that's for sure. Let me know your thoughts below. I think that we are in extremely terrifying and unprecedented times. Like I said, it's one thing for this to all happen, you know, for people to get on a train and disappear, never come back. I mean, it's horrible and horrifying and disgusting on your own soil. But now that it's happening in another country, it just gives a whole other layer of inevitability, of powerlessness, right? How do we force a foreign dictator who, by the way, got into power by gutting the government, by getting rid of the judges in the courts that didn't agree with him and putting his people in place? He actually sent an armed force onto the legislative floor to intimidate people who were speaking out against him. This is not a good guy. Sure, crime is down in El Salvador, but that's not how you do it. I mean, you can say crime was down in Nazi Germany, right? You can say crime was down in Soviet Union. But at what cost? How much are you willing to pay to close the borders? To rid the country of people coming here out of desperation? Something to think about. So this is how I see it. Let me know what you think. Leave your thoughts below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for being here. If you like my content, subscribe to my channel. Click the bell for notifications so you get notified when I do put out a new video. And you guys are on my mind a lot, even though I can't always make videos right now. But I'll see you soon. Thanks for being here.